Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Probate Show. Today, we are going to discuss will or trust should it be recorded. Hello, everyone. Again, welcome back to the show. Hello, Anthony Lung. How are you?
Hello, Long. Hi, everyone. Glad to be back.
All right, all right. So there is actually a very interesting question from one of the audience, and they asking because they get a recommendation to record the will in a public record. So I just want to reach out to you to see if that is a good idea, if that is a bad idea. But perhaps before we go into that, maybe you can give a high level of the difference between a will and a trust, the pros and cons at a very high level.
Sure. So, the will and the trust, there are key differences between them. The first is that generally, if you just have a will, typically when you pass, your estate goes through probate, meaning your family has to hire an attorney, file a court case with the court, and then begin the process of proving to the judge that you are the rightful heirs to the estate. If there's a
Uh,
will, you have to prove that there is a will. Of course, when I say you have to hire an attorney, I don't necessarily mean that you have to. It's just the process is pretty difficult, and generally people use an attorney for that process. But if
right.
you want to try and do it yourself, you can. Um,
Yeah, and technically everything can do everything by themselves, right? But whether
right.
you have a good experience, you have the knowledge to avoid difficulty, obstacles is a different story. So, yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but
No, it's all good.
go
Thank
ahead.
you. The other key important for the between the will and the trust is probably people with minor children. So if you have minor children and you have assets like a house or any kind of money, those assets don't get automatically transferred to your child if something happened to you because the minor cannot hold on to money. So if you have a situation like that, only a trust will be able to hold that money. Otherwise, you have to go. Your family has to go to court, and then the court has to decide who's going to be the guardian as well as the conservator to manage that money until the child is an adult.
Gotcha. Okay. At the high level, the will is still serving the purpose of transferring the property to the inherent, right? But it still needs some additional work, and it doesn't have the full protection for the minor in that situation.
Right. Generally, I would only recommend using a will for very simple estate. Say
Mm.
if you have just one house and you
Mhm.
have, adult children, and your
Right.
wishes is simply, I want to pass this on to my children if something happened to me. If that's
Mhm.
all you want, then you can use a will. But if you want anything more complex, say you want to take care of a disabled child, you want to leave it to your grandchildren, to your minor children,
Mhm.
you want to put special condition in there as to
Mhm.
what has to happen, then you would not use a will, you would use a trust.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think that anything is simple nowadays. Even if like I just talked to a client, his mom passed away and he's the only child. So it's just like okay, in general, he's the rightful owner of anything that she owns, right? But
Yeah.
still, the family member of that lady is still trying to get into some of the property. So I would say like yes, to your point, like most of the time if it's simple, the will is the best tool, but be careful because nowadays there's no thing is simple anymore, in my opinion. What do you think?
Ge- Generally not. I mean, I'll tell you now, majority of the client that come to me for consultation, they come in and they want a will. After the consultation, and I give them the pro and con of both, they generally choose the trust over the will because of
Yeah,
what they want.
right, right. And then you have a lot of flexibility as well for the future. So, come back to the original question: should the will or the trust be recorded in a public?
So this is something I've been seeing a lot recently. So a lot of my clients, actually come from other firm, either from other offices that they had their will done, or from attorney office that they got the will or trust done. Now I'm not going to name any of them, but basically these clients, they suspected there was something weird or something wrong with the wills and trust, and so they brought it to me for review. And one thing I noticed a lot that has been happening is that whoever prepared these wills or trusts decided to record these wills and trusts. Now,
Oh.
I'm not sure why that is. However, people need to understand that when you record something, that document become a public document. So that
Mm.
means anybody can access that record. They can see what's written into it. So, for example, when you write a will, what information is on the will? So it's going to be your full legal name, your address, your date of birth, and in some cases, I've even seen Social Security.
Oh.
And then, of course, all your children and all your assets. So, like you list out all five of your children, and then you list out all of your houses,
Yeah.
any gold bar that you have, any cash that you have. Now, I don't know if anybody really want other people to be able to see that information, but these offices are recording these wills and trusts left and right. And
Mm.
that is very concerning to me because there's so much scam and there's so many people out there looking to get your information nowadays so that they can access your credit or use your name to do something that is harmful to you. And you're basically giving them that opportunity. You handed over all your information to them by recording your wills and trusts.
Yeah, because in the will, I don't have the will, but I probably imagine that they have names, birthday, contact information, properties information, whatever the house that you own, right? It's gonna be on there, on the bank account, like your points, the most important social security number also on there. And when it become public, that means everyone can have access to that. There's no restriction against that.
Right. Now,
Hmm.
people want to know why they record the will, right? Because apparently some people think that to make the will valid or to give it more importance, you have to record it. That is
Hmm.
not true. The only time that a will get recorded is when it actually go through the court. Um, Only if the court requires that it be recorded. But the only other time I would record something is if I was terminating a will. But then again, that document would be very simple. I would say basically so and so had created a will, and now we are terminating this will, and nobody else should be using this will anymore.
I
But
see.
it contains no further information than that.
Gotcha. All right. So similar to trust, should that be recorded or no? Or maybe is it because of the same information? I shouldn't. Same reason I shouldn't record the trust.
It's pretty much the same. However, the trust, I like to consider a trust to be a private document,
Mm.
meaning the reason why people create a trust is because they don't want to go through the probate process, which make their whole family matter a public record matter. They want to keep it a secret from other people. So using a trust, you can transfer asset without anybody having to know about it. Only the people that need to know about it know about it. And so why would you want to record something, make it public when the intention is to make it private, right?
No, there's no reason. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So in that situation, let's come back. I mean, oh, sure. I guess the reason some of the people thinking recording make it public is to make it official. To your point earlier, right? So how
Mhm.
those documents become official? What if somebody just say, "Hey, I have the will from one person," and then another person also, "I also have a different version of the will. Which document is is accurate?" So I guess maybe that's the reason why people thinking public record those wills is valid. So can you explain, go further a little bit more on that example?
Right. And so this is why we have probate, because
Ah,
probate is actually a process for proving the will. That's the real name of it. Because the court, there's a lot of situation where somebody create a will in their lifetime, and then years later they create a new will, and they change the beneficiary. But however, the people who originally had the first will kept hang on to that copy, right? And then, of course, when the person passes away, what they're going to do? They're going to assert that will as the original will.
Right.
So they can get the asset and not the new person.
Mm.
And the court wants to make sure that there is only one original and last will and testament. That means the most recent will created is the only one that is valid. And so how the court proved that is obviously there are certain legal requirement that goes into a will. That every state is different, by the way. So make sure you talk to your attorney and make sure that your will is have all the legal requirement to make it valid. Because if you miss just one, it
Mm.
becomes invalid, and the court will actually throw the will out, and they're gonna go by intestate law instead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is the exact reason why while you can do everything on your own, hire an attorney to give a legal advice on this might not make sense, right? Because otherwise you don't know all the detail and you may miss some information that hidden to you.
Yeah,
Uh,
I actually have a good story for you. One of my client came in, my potential client came in and told me that I study up on will and I could do this on my own, but I'm here because I just want to get some information.
yeah.
And so I kind of asked him like, okay, how you plan to draft up your will? He said basically, I'm going to type it up, then I'm going to sign it.
Uh,
Well, first of all, that makes the will invalid already.
mm,
Because generally, if you type it up and you sign it, you also need witnesses. In this case, he didn't mention any witnesses. And second of all, if you want to make it a holographic will, you have to handwrite it out. You can't type it. And then
mm,
he also mentioned something to me about how the bank would help him designate the house to his beneficiary. I have never heard of such a thing, and I've never seen a bank would do that either. So, if there is a bank out there that do it for you, please let me know. I would like to know where this bank is.
we're gonna fight over it, right? Get big bucks. They shouldn't give any legal advice without a license in any state, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There is actually one question from Janet. She was asking about recording a trust, but she doesn't have actually a social security number on the trust.
The question is, I record a trust. What was it?
Oh, it's on the screen too. If you see it, I don't think it's more like a question, but it's just like a comment that she said on her trust. It doesn't have her social security number.
Correct. So your trust should not have a social security number on there. So whoever the trust that I review had the trust of the will that I review had a social security number there, which indicate to me that the person who drafted it did not know what they were doing in the first place. Because generally, once you create a trust, the social security number that applies to that trust is being given privately to the client, or it's their actual social security number. And if they need to apply for a tax ID number, we do that, but we give it separately. We do not put it into the trust.
That yeah. To again, the purpose of the trust is to protect you, right? Protect your information, not showing anything to the public.
And also, you should not record a trust. So if you had recorded trust, it's a little too late, but I don't recommend recording your trust. It should be a private document.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so that's a good advice, and to avoid anything problem in the future, for those of you who are thinking about recording a will or a trust, maybe consult with an attorney first before you do so. Because recording is easy. I think it's only like $25, $30 to go to the county to do that recording, right?
Yeah, you
Uh,
just pay the county, and you can basically record anything you want. They don't
right.
really care.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah. But is it a good idea? Probably not. So consult with an attorney before you do so.
If you must record something to show that you have a trust, I would recommend just recording the trust certification, because that's a very short document, and it contains just enough information to show that you have a trust, but it doesn't reveal anything else.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay. Yeah, very good advice. Thank you. Tony. And I think there is on the topic of recording, that is number one. And number two, the second question that one of the audience has is after I create a trust, for example, is that done? Is that done? And then we shouldn't look at that anymore. Is that the final, like, one time thing or anything else that needed?
So in a perfect world, I would like to get it done, and then I would not see you again, so that way I don't have to do extra work. However, that is not the case.
Ah,
So a trust is a complicated document. It requires you to know how to use it and then to update it when necessary, especially if there's a law change or if your family situation change, your asset change. So what we do at our office is that every year we would call you or we would email you to ask if you want to come in to do an annual review.
mm,
Now we do not charge for this service because we want to encourage the client to come back and to for us to follow through with them and make sure all the asset is in trust. Um, and then of course, if they have any changes, we would like to help them with that. So that's called an annual review, and we have a procedure for that.
yeah, and not just only the properties changes, but also maybe like just the people. Like if I when I remember, like when I create a trust, you asked me for the list of just the people, right? And there's a couple people. What if all of those people die? And then
Exactly.
maybe we have to have a new one, like things like that. If you don't, if I don't talk to you, then I wouldn't know to update those information.
Exactly. So I remember two situations that typically an annual review be very useful.
Hmm.
Um, One of the situation I typically see with clients who bring me trust from other offices is that they are not aware that some of their assets are not in trust. Because after they create the trust, they leave the attorney office and then they go and they buy more asset, they buy more house or rental properties, and they don't put it into trust after that because they never go back to the attorney, probably because they don't want to spend more money or whatnot, or they just forgot, right?
Yeah.
The other situation is when somebody got divorced
Mm.
and they don't go back to their attorney to change their wills and trust. Now, even though the default rule in divorce is that your spouse, your ex-spouse, is no longer your personal representative. However, your successor personal representative might be someone who is related to your ex-spouse, so maybe a sister or brother, and you might not want that person on your will anymore, but you did not realize that.
See, a lot of things could change within a year, right?
Right.
And we have to go through the list of the maybe a checklist that you probably have to ensure that all thing changes is incorporated into the new trust. Oh, the same version of same trust, but a new version probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have a checklist that I use when I do an annual review. And
Mm.
one of the few things I asked you is if any of your agent or beneficiary has changed,
Hmm.
right? And then of course, the next thing I do is I look through all the asset that you originally came to me, and I check the county to make sure all those asset has been properly titled, because sometimes the county might misrecord in the deed, even though we recorded it. But if they
Yeah.
don't process it on their end, your house is officially not in trust, and
Hmm.
so we have to catch that a year later and fix that, right?
Hmm.
Either that or we make a mistake. Who knows? But we have to fix it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and
Uh-huh.
then typically when I finish the trust, I always tell the client you have to go and put your bank into the trust or designate a beneficiary for your bank account as the trust. And te- they tend not to do it until the annual review, which is a year later, when I remind them again that they need to do it.
Which remind me also that I have to, I think mine is also due for the review as well. So
Yes.
I
So you
probably
need,
have to come to your office anytime soon, right?
yes. So you need to let us know so we can set you up.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Anything
then the
else?
other thing, one of the other thing we also check for is that if there was any new marriages,
Mm,
divorce, any new birth, new child, Any serious illnesses or death in the family, stuff like that, we also want to know that as well.
Yeah, very important because things could change within a year. A lot of things could change, right? Probably buy more houses, sell more houses, and then like new child, new marriage, like your example. Yeah.
Well, Long, you probably know this, but typically a lot of your clients, don't they do refinance and they take the property out of trust, but then
Yeah.
the refinance company
Yeah.
doesn't put it back into trust, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because when they do refinance, the lender doesn't like the title to be the trust. It has to be a person, unless it's a commercial property. But in a regular residential property, it has to be a person name. Therefore, they're gonna remove the trust and then put their name, personal name, and then they forget. After they get all the money, all the new loan and things like that, and then totally forget that.
Yeah. And sometimes clients don't really pay attention to that. But once we catch that, we tell them you have to put it back into the trust.
Now. Oh, well, I think it's a good discussion today. I think we answered a lot of questions from two audience. Thank you so much for sending those questions as well. Our next show is going to be at noon, October 6th, 2023, of course. So hopefully everyone has a good long weekend, and I hope to see you again next show.
Thank you everyone for attending the show, and thank you Long for hosting the show.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.